Alright, hello. Today I'm going to be attempting to install a speed bleeder for a LS1 T56 Camaro. And this is going to go into the slave cylinder inside the transmission. This is designed to where you don't have to drop the transmission. So it's going to be very tight quarters up under that car. I'm going to try to attempt to record as much as I can while doing this. So this will go directly into the slave cylinder, and it's got a rubber hose that's attached, so that way you don't have to worry about accidentally dropping it into the transmission. And this is the line for it, and this is the line, the end here where you will uncap it a little and screw it, and that way you can start bleeding it out once you get it all plugged in. So this end will go directly into the end here that's covered by the rubber hose after this gets installed to the slave cylinder, so that way you can bleed the fluid and the air out of the system. Alright, here we are. You're going to come up from underneath the car. Here's the transmission, and open towards the front, right past the catalytic converter. You're going to go upwards, and right there you see that brass fitting. That's for the clutch master cylinder. Pushes the fluid into the slave cylinder, and then up at the top, I'm trying to angle the camera here to see if I can even see where that hole is at. It's just right above it. There should be another hole to where you can see the other factory bleeder. That's what we're going to have to remove. I'm not even sure if I'm getting this on camera or not. It's very cramped up there. You only get so much room. And then if you ran the car, you got to worry about the hot exhaust. So here's that fitting. Yeah, see, that's a little hot. Just accidentally touched it. Got the brass fitting there that fits into the slave cylinder, and there's a little hole up here, and I can feel the factory bleeder. So I'm gonna have to get up in there with a socket and try to take that thing out without accidentally dropping it into the transmission. This is gonna suck. Alright, this was my third attempt putting that speed bleeder in. It was a bitch, let me tell you. I think I only swore like 4 times. So this is the line, and I got it ran down into the bottom of the engine bay here and running right into the transmission, into the slave cylinder. And I had to do some really weird, funky stuff to get the old one out. Here's the old one right here. This is the old fitting. And you see how it's got a hole all the way through, because normally you would crack it a little bit and then you hook up a hose to this, which would be just total. It doesn't even make sense to me why it was designed this way, to where you have to put an aftermarket speed bleeder into it. But you see it's got that hole, and my biggest fear, this was the third time, my third attempt. I guess the third time is really a charm. This was my third time getting this out. Or third attempt to get this out, and I actually succeeded, as if you couldn't tell. What I had to do was I had to get up in there with the socket and just crack this open. And my plan was to, at first, was like maybe try to undo it with my fingers. And I used a wire coat hanger because my biggest fear was dropping this right into the transmission. So while I went in there with the socket, I cracked it open. I slid, actually a little longer socket. It was a 11, you're going to use 11 millimeter for that. And then I used a coat hanger, which I bent it open, and I slid a socket over it like that. Then I placed it into the bleeder valve here while it was still in transmission, and then just slid the socket over it and just twisted it with my fingers to get it out. And then it all just fell right out once it was loose. And then getting it back in there, the other one was pretty easy because it was on that rubber hose. Get up under here. So right up in there,
right here. You can see this is the hose. This is where the fitting goes in. So I reached up in there, kind of angled it in there. Once I got it in, it actually, first try, connected with the threads on the slave cylinder, went right in. I was able to tighten it up. And I was not able to get a socket in there. This is going to be a 13 millimeter for that fitting, 11 millimeter for the other, 13 for this. I had to use a wrench and just kind of put it in there, finagle it down, just keep pulling down until I finally got tight. And then I went from the top and fed the hose down, and then just connected it right into the fitting. And then it's also a 13 millimeter, so I was able to just tighten that up. And you see like the hose that runs up into the engine bay, and that's where I would do all the bleeding. As you saw the brake bleeder that I got up there, so I was just using that. So I'll show you how to do that next. Okay, so what I did was I would get some pressure in there first, load it up. You're gonna have the hose connected right into the speed bleeder. So you're going to need two different sizes just to get better. Make sure when you install this that this bleeder line right here is tight, because the pedal ended up crashing on me. I thought I did something wrong, so I ended up tightening it up, and then I started bleeding it out. I loosened it up, got the air going through, because I had to keep feeding the reservoir brake fluid. And you gotta, while you're bleeding it, you gotta watch the reservoir. There's a little line down on the bottom inside that you'll see. When it gets close to that, refill it, and just keep refilling. But then what's going to happen is you're going to have to empty this from time to time. And so what I'm using here is a 7/16 for the bleeder line itself, and then there's a fitting to hold on to, so that way you can use two wrenches. So that way you're not trying to hold this and then crack it open. So it makes it easier to use two wrenches. So the bigger nut there, as you can see, it's going to be a 9/16. So 7/16 for the small one, 9/16 for the larger one. And I'm just going to let the air out, because I already closed this off, so I don't have to worry about air going back into the system, because I'm done bleeding it. The clutch feels great. It's going to be much easier. And every time I do an oil change, I'm going to bleed out the clutch, just run new fluid through it, because it gets pretty dirty easily. You can see, I mean, this is just over time of me trying to bleed the thing. All the dirty fluid came out. And that's pretty much it. So get yourself a coat hanger, bend it, feel around, feel for that hole. After you get this cracked, then just take a coat hanger, the size socket for it, run it straight through the socket. This is very hard to do with one hand. And then you're gonna work your way around up in there until you feel it go through, and just feed it through as much as you can. Crack it out and just pull it on through, because my biggest fear was dropping anything into the transmission and then having to go to somebody to pull the transmission. I've never pulled the transmission before. That's why I call myself the bunk ass mechanic. I am not a real mechanic. That is what I've gone with. I thought it was funny. I don't know if anybody else finds it humorous, but I mean, there's quite a few tools that I had to use, but this was just ingenuity right here, because I just feared dropping that part into the transmission, because that would just totally kibosh the whole thing. So I hope this was helpful to anyone. This is the TIC Performance Speed Bleeder. I hope you can learn from this. It took me 3 tries, like I said. Hopefully it will only take you 1. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe. I would appreciate it. If you like my videos, if you have any questions, let me know. I mean, there's still more to come in the future. Stay tuned.